Thank you all for joining us on the Muzie show today. Today we've got a special guest, Josh Gillis. I'll have Josh introduce himself in a second. One little thing I just want to throw out there before we get started, kind of Muzie related, is from today until next Monday, we are going to do 20% off on our annual accounts. So if you are interested in using Muzie or you have a monthly membership, now would be the time to go for that annual membership. It's our Black Friday, Cyber Monday thing. So that'll be the one and only promo I'll ever do. So onto the fun stuff. So Josh, you want to tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do? Obviously, you're a music teacher, and sort of that's why you're here, but seem to have a specialty almost in the field now.
Yeah, man, it's a hobby turned specialty, I guess. But it's so I teach guitar full time, mostly acoustic, but my focus is beginners. So I've just niched down to my Facebook profile even says I teach beginners how to play guitar.
Nice.
That's it. And then once I get to a certain point,
you're like, and off this month.
Yeah, I can pass them on to guys like you, right? So, but yeah, that's kind of my niche, and but I got into this technology stuff about year and a half ago. And, I'll talk probably some more about that during the presentation. I put together some slides. I kind of went through a lot of this stuff with Brenner over at Fonz. It had a similar talk, but I've added a bunch to this with AI and different things that I've kind of researched since then, because we had a few guests on at the same time talking. I was like, man, this is so interesting. I had to dive into some other things and look in. So really excited. And today, it's really just about let's just get our feet wet with this stuff. We don't know what this is going to look like 10, 15 years down the road, but I know we just need to start talking about it and thinking about it,
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Is that the issue I see is that most of the stuff that is put out there about any new emerging technologies is weirdly pessimistic. And I guess we'll talk about all this, but with cryptos, going up and dropping and people losing money and stuff like that, there's an inherent risk with new technology. That's just the truth of the world. Then having all of the sort of complications of this technology and we're getting into this interesting thing where technology is becoming almost so complicated that your average person is actually having a really hard time understanding what it even does. And not even on an analogy level isn't even working a lot of the time now. You can't really be like, oh, well, crypto's kind of it's yes, we don't really have a kind of that's sort of what we'll try to do, is break down a little bit of what these things are, or more what they aren't, I think is really what we'll probably be able to answer for people today. Because I'm still, I'll be reading articles on Web3, and it'll say one thing and you'll read another article and say a completely different thing. And so you're like, okay, well, what is it? But that's sort of the point, is it's all new and it's all emerging. And like you said, we don't know exactly where it's going, but the conversation has to be opened up so that people who are interested in the technology, and even if you're not really interested in it, it's sort of imagine if someone told you in 10 years ago that the pandemic was going to happen and that you were going to have to put everything online. If you knew ahead of time and you had been setting yourself up for that, then nothing would have been different for you on the day that stuff fell down, whereas obviously this is not a pandemic level thing. But I think the way I think of it is that this technology will emerge faster than you think. And it's already here. A lot of it is already here. And it's in its infancy, but once it doesn't take long for the boom to happen. And once the boom happens, then the technology becomes almost ubiquitous, what feels like overnight. And we hear about crypto and NFTs basically every day now for the last 5 or 6 years. Obviously, it's still not the currency we trade with, but countries have tried it. There are different experiments going in place. But I think, and we'll get to this, is that there's a convergence of all of these technologies coming together. So sort of the highlight, the VR, the AR, the metaverse, the crypto, the NFTs, the Web3 is sort of the portal for all of that. And that, I think, is going to be one of those things that when that fire ignites for real, it's going to take off like a rocket. And if you're not ready and you're going to really feel like you're getting left behind, more so than the current state of technology, which already feels like it is moving at a lightning speed.
Yep.
So yeah, did you want to do you want to just kind of dive into anything?
I'd love to, man. I've got this on a Google Drive. I'll see if I can
Yeah, you want to
share my
pull it up and we can
screen.
share it. And
Yep, I'll share the screen. And let
uh,
me know if you can see what I'm looking at.
yep, and I can now.
All right. So I kind of called this Web3 musicians
Cool. Okay.
teaching music in a new decentralized world. That's my catchy little
I
title.
like it.
But yeah, I kind of like it's really all this is a brain dump for me, man. It is
Right.
like I just need to like get this out there and try to formulate it in some pattern. But then I was like, man, there's a lot of teachers in our industry that could like learn a few things here. And
Totally.
not that any of this is like, you know, you need to go out and do it now, but at least
Right.
be aware of it and start thinking about it. So
Absolutely. And one thing to clarify, this isn't a course or anything. Like, this is more just our conversation around what, you know, eventually maybe you could build into a course, but you know,
that's
that's all obviously an obvious, you know, avenue. But as of right now, right, we're just sort of, we're talking this is just a conversation about the technology.
That's right, man. We can go ahead and put that little disclaimer, not financial advice, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. Like, exactly.
Yeah. It's just two guys talking about stuff we're interested in.
Exactly.
So, well, yeah. So this is kind of the question that I was chewing on. What will our studios look like in the next 5 or 10 years in light of all this stuff happening in Web3? And so some people might look at Web3 like, what the heck is Web3? So here's how I kind of break it down, right? Web 1 was back in the early days of internet where you had read only, right? Yeah. It was just a website. You go to it, you read it, you digest it, right? There's some examples of CERN's World Wide Web, GeoCities. And if
almost
you
like Wikipedia even is a little
yes,
bit like
yeah,
a Web 1
yep,
because
just like
90% of the time you're not inputting anything, you're just
exactly
reading the content, and
you're just reading, just like this picture here. You're reading it and then clicking links. Read it.
yep,
Click
exactly, right. It was the link heaven where everything linked to each other somehow.
That's it, man. So yeah, very much like kind of like Wikipedia. Well, then Web 2 rolls around, and like you mentioned, this is when participative social web. This is when you can actually add information on social media like Facebook, Twitter, etc. How's that for a throwback to good old Facebook days?
Oh man, I was almost expecting MySpace to pop up.
I
But
know.
yeah, we might be too far back for that one.
Yeah, that's true, man. I might add that to the next little slide someday. But well, yeah. So Web3 rolls around, and this is where you can read, write, execute, and own web. Okay, and this is where Ethereum comes in. You have the Ethereum network, OpenSea. OpenSea is kind of like the eBay of NFTs, where you can buy, sell, trade, things like that. And here's OpenSea's like homepage. So you've probably heard of the top left, the little skeleton, the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Yep.
You have Mutant Apes, CryptoPunks is a popular project. So a lot of different things you can buy, sell, and trade on there. So an easy way to think of this is if you said Web 1, it's when they write it and they own it. All right. Web 2 would be you can write it, but they still own it. In other words, you can write a Facebook post, but if Facebook goes down, well, you don't have your content, you don't have all your pictures, like they still own all that information, right? And lastly, Web 3 is you write it and you get to own it. And that's the power of the blockchain, right? So that's really what everything hinges on is block technology. And without going too deep into the weeds, I just kind of pull up some definitions on blockchain. It's a system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult or impossible to change, hack, or cheat the system. So a blockchain is essentially a digital ledger of transactions that is duplicated and distributed across the entire network of computer systems on the blockchain. It's very wordy and very confusing the first time you read it, maybe, but here's kind of a picture I found that might help figure out, you know, or demystify some of it, right? So say I want to trade, you know, something like crypto. Crypto is just something that you can trade like on the blockchain, right? So I want to send A to B. Well, I pull up the like the coin I want to trade or something like that. And basically it makes it into a block of code. And this code goes out to all these network of people saying, okay, did this transaction come from this computer? Yes. Does he actually own it? Yes. They all agree and say, yes, that works. Then they all approve it. And then that code of transaction is linked onto the previous transaction. And it just keeps forming this trail of blocks of information and transactions that are public source. Most of them are, you know, are public source where it's open ledger. You can see any transaction, any wallet address and what they're doing. And finally it goes to the recipient, right?
And I think that's the big thing, right? Sorry not to cut you off, but the public side of this is what makes this so different and so sort of important, is that it's when the public ledgers, and not all of them are public, that like there are technologies that run under in a private way, but the big ones that you're looking at are run on a public ledger, so that when one transaction occurs, see, like analogies don't really work. It's not quite like having an open bank account ledger because it's not that public. All the information's encrypted and it's much more complicated than that. But the idea is that at any given point, anybody can check in on what's going on. That's sort of the overall mentality. And so that's what the whole decentralized means in a really, really broad term.
Super broad. And it's like, everyone, Bitcoin is kind of the most popular one, and the most easiest way is like it is the most decentralized in that it doesn't have a one person ahead of it, doesn't have a company or people governing it, versus something like Binance or Coinbase. They have a CEO, they have a team of people. Like if Binance goes down and decides to lock up your crypto, then you can't do anything about it. Versus Bitcoin.
Well, and that's actually something worth mentioning right there, because the one thing people I hear arguing, and it's a valid argument, is like, okay, so we have these wallets, which are basically a digital wallet. So it's kind of like a digital bank account. So the nowadays we don't worry that Bank of America is going to go down. Like we don't. That's not like nobody's worried about that. But there's a real concern that something like a Coinbase or a Binance or any of those other companies that are running the big wallet systems could go down. And they could disappear overnight. And they technically do have sort of a bit of control to access of the data, the coins, the money, the resource. So as decentralized as it is, it's like, you got to imagine we're trying to build out this decentralized future network, but we're currently using a centralized network to do that. So like there's a certain, like at a certain point, we're just gonna have to push the ship and let it sail, but we're not quite there yet. So we're still in this weird phase where like you have these like kind of latch overs from Web 2 that are sort of holding on to Web 3 to help build it. At a certain point, we're gonna have to get rid of those latches, but there's how that all occurs is going to be interesting too. But
yeah, for sure, man. So that's essentially like how blockchain kind of works in the background, but you can do several different things, not just crypto. Crypto is just a function of blockchain. And so that kind of goes into the next thing, like talking about NFTs or non-fungible tokens, right? So these are unique cryptographic tokens that exist on a blockchain and cannot be replicated. So you've probably heard of like the Bored Ape Yacht Club. By the way, this is an example of mine. So
cool. Okay.
This is what got me all into it, man. This is if you've ever heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, he's an entrepreneur. And this is his project called V Friends, VEE Friends. So they call his name Gary V, and that's where he gets V Friends from. So anyway, there's these little animals and characters that have different traits about them. This one in particular is called a brave bison, but he may have like I don't know, I'm trying to think of other ones, like a compassionate cockadoodle or something, whatever. But he has these adjectives, like positive attributes to these animals. He's kind of making his own digital version of his own like Disney World type thing. So anyway, I heard about this project. I didn't even know what an NFT was. This was like back in March, I think, of last year. And anyway, he's like, hey guys, I'm launching this project. You need some ETH or Ethereum in your wallet. Just get ready. And so I was like, oh man, well, I don't know exactly what this is, but it sounds pretty cool. So I bought this NFT basically. And what it was a ticket to his conference. All right.
Okay, cool.
And so for the next 3 years.
Nice.
And so, and I'll get into a little more of that too, but, so that's what it is. And because the NFT cannot be duplicated or highly likely to get stolen. Like that's how it's like a Ticketmaster ticket basically. So anyway, here's some quick facts about NFTs. They can represent real world items like artwork and even real estate. Here's an example of Snoop Dogg. He owns that Bored Ape. All right. There's Paris with hers, Jimmy Fallon, Steph Curry, Kevin Hart, all these celebrities own these apes. All right. There's also a company called Proppy who got into the real estate game. This is their website. The world's first real estate NFT. So they basically listed a property as an NFT, and essentially you buy this NFT and the property comes with it, essentially. Like
Yep.
that is the function, is that's how it works. So you can list your property and right there. And actually, this happened about whatever it was, 10/17. So a little over a month ago, this NFT house sold for 175 over the weekend. Holding the NFT gives you ownership of the actual house in South Carolina. The company that made it happen is Roofstock, and you can view it. Trades on OpenSea. So I actually went to OpenSea and I found it, and sure enough, there it is in South Carolina. You buy this NFT and the house kind of comes with it. So
like buying a deed to a house. That's one thing I think people misunderstand about NFTs is often, more than anything, it's just a binding contract.
That's it.
To just say that you paid for the thing and you are the owner of the thing. It's like you said, it's a ticket at the end of the day. And I think people are kind of overblowing the whole like Bored Ape and the image that's on the front, like the little doodle that's on your bison is just a doodle of a bison. That's not a $500. I don't know how much you paid for it, but that's not a $500 bison drawing. Right. But the access to the conference for 3 years is very much worth the value of what you pay for it. You 100%. Just happen to also get a one-of-a-kind item digitally along with it, which doesn't
exactly. And the way to think of it, like that bison now is kind of like, you can kind of compare it to going to like the Rolling Stones back in the day. You still got your t-shirt, you still got your ticket stub, you still got that real life tangible asset that you could sell on eBay for a lot of money. Well, now it's just the same thing, but like a digital. You get a digital receipt of it, basically.
And the whole idea that people, I think, misunderstand with the whole like, oh, well, I can just photocopy it and put it on my wall. The best analogy I've heard, and I think this one really works, is would you print the Mona Lisa from your home printer, get a really nice frame for it, and stick it on your wall? Nah, you wouldn't. You just wouldn't. Like, I mean, show me a house that's done that. But like that's because there's a mentality thing behind it. Because if anyone came over, they'd be like, "Why do you have the Mona Lisa hanging on your wall?" They'd be like, "What?" They'd be like, we know that's not real. Like you can't like pretend you own the Mona Lisa, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I think the same thing sort of applies here. Is that like if you're trying to like pretend you own an NFT, I mean, cool, I guess. Like, and then when it comes down to it, you can't sell yours. You can't do anything with it. So it has intrinsically no value.
Exactly. So that bison, it's like, go try to get into the car. If you took a screenshot of that bison and walked up to the door of the conference, they're going to laugh at you. Like, this is not linked to the blockchain. It's not verifiable. Like, who are you?
This is just a screenshot of an image from a computer. Like,
exactly.
Difference. Exactly. Like, I think people misunderstand how much data can be compiled behind a set of pixels. Like in the base, if we're going to talk real base level, I think that's where a lot of this misunderstanding comes from. Is you see an image on the screen and you go, that's an image on the screen. We go, well, no, actually, every single pixel in that image is an encrypted piece of data that is, back chained to this and that, or whatever it is you're doing with that thing. There's millions of variations of that. But that's, I think, the piece that seems to be missing in the real world is that people are sort of forgetting that it's the data that has the value, not exactly the thing you're looking at.
That's it, man. It's all about what's in the smart contract, what the utilities are, what it can actually do. And that's it. It's more than just a picture. And, side note, man, if you really like the picture and that's the price you want,
right, and that's cool.
Then great, man. Pay whatever for a bison or whatever for whatever. And
go.
Go for it.
I've got a painting of mountains on my wall downstairs that was, not cheap, the kind of thing, like, it wasn't $5, so it's the kind of thing where you're like, I don't have any, I don't plan on like doing anything with it. I just want to own it because it looks cool. Like, that's also okay. You're allowed to still do that.
Yeah, that's right, man. Well, one way to think about NFTs is like tokenizing these real assets. It makes buying and selling and trading them more efficient while reducing probability or fraud. So a way that I think of it is like a token at an arcade, right? This represents something. This NFT represents something. All right. So NFTs can also function to represent individual identities, property rights, and more. Like we're talking about deeds to houses, whatever it is. you know, as long as it's on the blockchain, it's verifiable. It's not duplicatable. You can't go and manipulate it or anything like that. So it is what it is. So it's a solid contract and document, you know? So anyway, one thing I thought interesting, NFTs can actually be passports and things like that in the future. And not only that, but passports in the Web3 world, in the metaverse, things like that. And there'll probably be a day, one day, when our actual, you know, passports are digitalized instead of having to carry it around every day. So collectors have sought NFTs as their value initially soared, but have since moderated. And you can see that in the graph. Last year was a huge bubble, man. Like here I came along in March and I heard about NFTs. Gary V launched his in May, and then dude, it just took off. And I thought I was a freaking genius. and
here it comes back down to earth.
And and he even said, like, look, the bubble's about to pop, guys. Like, I mean, you could have taken a picture of like the poop emoji or whatever, and like sold it for whatever and made money on it. And most people that get into flip, make a quick buck. But the projects that are gonna last, like the .com bubble busted, all the sites went away except a few survived. Like
I was just gonna say, I was like, if you gave me a graph of the longevity of just the internet, it is filled with bubbles. It is filled with bubbles, and NFTs and crypto and Bitcoin and all of this is definitely bubble like vulnerable. It's possible to be hit by bubbles, but it doesn't mean that it is just a bubble.
That's right.
It's like the internet itself. Everyone and actually we'll definitely get into this in a bit, but everyone in the 90s saying, "Oh, this is just a fad. This is a fad." Just no, you're never going to do any of that stuff online. It's the same. The amount of people I talk to now who are like, "Oh, I'm never going to use VR for this stuff." I'm sitting there like, "Oh, really?" Like, just a quick side. I play ping pong every day. I do not own a ping pong table. Okay. So like, and I can play pretty high level ping pong. I don't own a ping pong table. It's all virtual, but it's so good now that if you didn't know any better, you would think that I'd been practicing on a real ping pong table for the last year. And its skills translate. Like I can play real ping pong because of it. It's kind of wild.
That's awesome.
But that's sort of the point, is like it's already here. So we'll get into that in a second, though.
Yeah, for sure, man. Last thing I'll say about this is do your own research. Like, don't go buy this particular NFT just because it's on the screen here or any other one. Like, research who made it, what they're doing, what the actual utility is, and that kind of thing. So that's a big thing. So art is collectible, but the real value lies in utility, right? So what can this bison do? If you go click on the OpenSea link, it says it's a verifiable emission for VCon. 2022 is already passed, so they have 2023 and 2024. It lives on the Ethereum blockchain. It kind of has character traits on it. This particular one's a rare one. You have like core, rare, epic. Like, you know, this is a 1 of 8, but he also has a 1 of 2 and a 1 of 1, several 1 of 1s with different backgrounds, different functions, and different things like that. So the cool thing here, that bison, what Gary did was he airdropped everyone a ticket. That way you didn't have to like burn your token, basically. So he gave us an extra ticket that was the actual ticket. So this actually got me into VCon this year when I went, and got to actually meet Gary briefly there, which is kind of cool. But that particular ticket, now what's the utility behind this besides the sentimental, hey, I went to VCon? Is that he collaborated with Snoop Dogg. And now if you have this particular ticket and show that you went, then you're going to get whatever benefit and project they're working on, basically. So it's all about utility, man. So here's the big question. All this is cool. Learned a lot of stuff. But
so where does this actually apply to any of the stuff we do?
So I'm going to give us some real life examples here, right? What if I made me a NFT? I said I'm a guitar teacher. I focus on beginners. Well, I can make an NFT that gives access to my 1 hour, like weekly online lessons, for example. You own this NFT that verifies that you bought it, and that gives you access to me, basically. I can make digital curriculum, chord charts, other materials that they have access to. I can make it a ticket to my live workshops that I do. I can make it the ticket to get into my recitals and my shows. Free swag. I mean, I could, give them a coffee mug or something,
Absolutely.
So lots of different things. There's another one we came up with, world's okayest guitar player.
There you go. That's perfect.
Yeah, and also like online courses, online guitar lessons, or whatever, like pre-recorded stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what about you? I thought about this for you. All right. So, what if you did something for your music.school? All of the same things we just talked about, right? Well, you could even do a Muzie for the Muzie show.
Yeah.
You can have a guest pass and memorabilia. Hey, Josh, you were on the Muzie show. You get this token. You know, and you, because of that, you're one of the gang, man. You're like, this shows you digitally that you were here like 10 years ago, man. And, you know, because we have your address, we can drop you cool stuff or whatever. Free swag and a POAP. POAP, something I never heard of until this year, but it's an acronym for Proof of Attendance Protocol.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And NFTs are non-fungible tokens. So that's the difference. Simply put, an NFT is a unique digital collectible. A POAP NFT is a specific type of NFT that shows you attended an event or experience. So when I went to VCon this year in Minneapolis, they were saying, hey, connect your wallet to POAP, which if you go here to poap.xyz, you connect your wallet with that button in the center. And then they had different stuff at VCon that you had proof of attendance for. So here's mine that I got back in May. All right. I have like 4 or 5 different events that I did while I was there. And it's just a cool digital way to say, yeah, I was there. I did that. Right. So one of them was the actual VCon POAP saying, yeah, dude, I was there. That's ticket number 254 of 1,200. I think more like 3,000 people were there, but not everyone scanned this, you know?
Right. And it's of how many of those existed.
Right. And so here's another one. Ledger was there as a, what do you call them? They had their own booth and stuff selling.
Yeah, there's like 1,200 out of 2,000 of those ones.
Yeah, exactly. So I scanned that and got it. Say, yeah, stop by the Ledger booth or whatever, you know, and there's another one.
Well, that's actually really cool because as one thing, so we just went to a conference, and one thing that we end up doing, you know, give a lot of business cards, a lot of flyers, a lot of like keychains and stickers and stuff like that.
Yep.
But theoretically, right, you could have it set to an NFT system where when they come by your booth, there's registered that they came to your booth, and that acknowledgement is sort of like the proof that person actually went there. And it can be registered in dozens of different ways. You could literally scan a card. You could just do proximity and locate. There's a billion different ways of making that occur. But the idea is more that the proof that you did these things. And if we want to extrapolate this out real quick to where this might be the first place teachers will interact with this, is if I was a public school superintendent, or I was running a conference, I would love to have something like this so I can prove the teachers actually attended all the sessions that they wanted to attend. And then they would then have a log of all of the places that, you know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of like that kind of thing is where you can see it being applied to a practical thing. And just jumping back to what we could do with it. One thing that I talked about this maybe a year or two ago was actually you could sell the episode itself as an NFT. So like the episode itself could be just bought by someone who's listening. They could be like, that was my favorite episode. I want to own it. And then they would become like the owner of the episode, and they would have producer rights, and they could have tons of kickbacks and things. And you can even do it to a point where, like, obviously we don't make money off these episodes or anything. But if, you know, say you ran this podcast to the point where you actually had like a sponsor segment, all that jazz, you theoretically could sell the episode, which comes with a 5% royalty on the episode itself.
Exactly.
You know, things like that are things like that are why people might want to actually buy something like a podcast episode.
That's right.
Not that you'd actually want to just buy a podcast episode.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing with the music industry, man. It's like
songs.
Yeah, Tory Lanez is a popular rapper in Canada, and he sold out 1 million copies of his song or album, or whatever it was, in like less than a minute for $1, right? Yep. But the key is that, one, he made $1 million in a minute,
right?
So, 2, he sold it to his fans, which then could sell the song to their other fans, and the fans get a kickback of royalty because that was built into the contract. So it's like the fans get rewarded for being fans.
And actually, that was something I was going to bring up earlier when you were talking about the art exchange. Beeple, it might be one that people might know just because it got big news stories. Sold, you know, the most expensive NFT for like $70 million. One of the things that's interesting about that, though, is that if the guy who bought it ever sells it, Beeple still gets like 15% of that sale, and then that sale. So every time the piece of art is sold in perpetuity, the artist is getting a kickback. So the one thing that we can all appreciate is that imagine if you wrote a song and you sold that song, maybe you sold the rights of the song to Sony, and they buy them from you for just say $1,000. So you got your first $1,000. Cool. So they have your song. They sell the rights to Warner Brothers. Well, you'll get a cut of the deal that goes through to Warner Brothers. It's not just Sony now making profit off of your work. Yep. It's actually giving a little bit of power back to the person who created, and like you said at the very beginning, write and own, which at the end of the day, that's what we all do and want.
Yeah. No, that's it, man. That's good insight, dude. Last one I had an example of here was like your Muzie guys, right? So what if the Muzie monsters were in of themselves NFTs, right?
Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, what if they were like,
I just swapped screens so I could see you. Oh, nice.
Physical variations of some of the creatures that could exist in the real world. Now, this is a card game we're building, but 100%, we were talking about this the other day. So there he is. Yes. So I don't know if I can get to focus, but yeah, so we made physical. We're doing this whole card game thing. I'll tell everyone about next week. Dude, but yeah, right on that is the we were like, right when we made them, we were like, oh, you could totally turn these into NFTs. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, they got my wheels turning. I was like, you could unlock bonus games, like
absolutely.
Even within Muzie itself, like because you've all awesome like chord sheets and games and stuff. You can unlock bonus stuff. Kind of a collect them all type deal, part of a bigger game where, maybe you make all the characters into a band and that gets you access to something or a concert or free music swag drops. Now that you can verify this person, owns this NFT, then man, maybe you just, if the Muzie monster has this, these cool little shoes on right here, maybe you get dropped a pair of shoes randomly or something, right?
Absolutely.
Or clout, just clout. I mean, that's what skins in a game is. In a lot of ways, that's what Bored Apes is. It's like, it's clout. It shows that I'm in the community I paid a lot of money for, I'm in amongst these other celebrities and stuff. And so anyway, and then just the Muzie.live thing. I was thinking like, what if you did just Muzie ones for like me, like fellow teachers that use your product? It's like, well, what if I get 1,000 lessons taught, kind of like your AAA card says like, thanks for being a member for 5 years, or whatever. It's kind of like you get these little cool little NFTs, or you could do POAPs or whatever, saying, bam, yeah, you got, just little nods of coolness. All right. So function is login key, access to materials and platform, tradable, sellable asset, and then protect intellectual property. So go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, no, you hit one here. That's number 2, login key. So that's something where this is another one where I think this would be like the first application you'll probably see of NFTs being like ubiquitously pushed out to like the world, will be as a login function. It will replace the idea of a username and a password. You will have one, most likely, you'll have one sort of identification NFT of some kind, and that will be used for you to log into anything. And you won't have to be making separate accounts on every single thing. Or like when you make an account, it's more just swipe a thing and answer their specific questions.
Yeah.
So
dude,
huge so.
Yeah. And that's exactly the next slide I'm going to talk about is how does this look like? And I'm going to show you how you can do this, man. So here's the example of parallel that I'm thinking of is like Netflix. You have the person who pays for the count, then all the parasites that leak off the accounts, right? So everyone kind of does it, but there's not a great solution, a way to stop it. And I've heard some other people mention, well, there's a lot of AI out there that can track locations and stuff, and maybe that's true too. Maybe there are already some functional ways, but this is definitely a way that they could implement this, right? So I got this idea from Steve Larson, who's a big internet marketer. He came out with this Capitalist Pig NFT and all the right stuff on the right is the utility that came with it.
Okay.
The thing that caught my eye was the pre-designed proven DApp template. And so what a DApp is a decentralized app. And what he has kind of pioneered that I haven't seen anyone else do is exactly what we're talking about. To get access to this course, you have to log in with your wallet and you have to show you have this NFT. And the same is true for like Netflix. If Netflix did this, it would get rid of the whole share of the username password, because you have to actually physically have that NFT in your wallet. And if you wanted to let a friend borrow it, it's really risky because you may never get it back.
Yeah, it's not as simple as just like sending them the code and then getting the code back from them later.
Exactly, man.
That's it. I love this idea of, because the thing we're talking about here at the core is security. What we're talking about is an almost like super encrypted way of logging in. The nice thing for you as the user, super easy. You don't actually have to like memorize a 50-digit encryption code. You just need to have your, it'll be a thing that's like not even it's not going to be a thing you actually hold. It's just going to be an app on your computer. Like just your computer itself is going to be able to like register that you're the owner, is that kind of thing. So kind of like almost like single sign-on with like Google when you get on, and it just, or like the autofills, it knows who you are if you're already logged in. It's sort of like that, but on a much, much higher level. What makes it nice for people like me who build the software and have, is that we don't have to worry so much about back-end data breaches. We wouldn't have to worry about bot attacks and spam and crap like that. It's not a massive problem or anything. I mean, it can be, it can become a huge problem for people, but these are the kinds of things that could stop that, like you hear about Twitter with all the fake accounts. So like this would be a really, really quick way of stopping people from building fake accounts. It's like, fortunately, Muzie is not something people make fake accounts for. Fake students, I guess, is pretty cool. But you know what I mean? Like when inflating numbers on your platform actually becomes like, that's almost a business trick in itself. Is like people do that to grow their business. This would sort of verify how many people are actually using real products. How many of those people are actually real people.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I did a little screenshot of me logging into this to kind of show the people the idea of how it works. So you click on that sign in Web3, it opens up my wallet, and boom, there it is right there under NFTs. And so it recognizes that it has it. It asks me to sign a quick little contract saying, it verifies all that. I do that, and then boom, I'm into the course.
Perfect.
Right? And so this, man, talk about protecting your intellectual property now. Man, you have to have the NFT to get access to this stuff now, right?
Yeah.
All right. So here's some things. How can it help me? Again, protect your intellectual property, ticket your events and workshops, access to your private groups, online lessons, things like that. Create a collectible for your students, create residual income each time it sells, like you talked about. Yeah, I'll pause there, man. Any recap on NFTs? Or
I think that's fantastic. That's a good overview of what these are, because I think the thing that I like that you've highlighted, and the thing I'm always trying to explain to people, and you made this clear, is utility. It's about the function on the other side. It's not the NFT itself. It's kind of like a car key. The key to the car doesn't mean much. The car means the like, you know what I mean? Like, you can have a key to my car, it's still my car. Like, those are sort of the ways that I kind of view that. And I think you've done a great job kind of explaining that. But now I think we're about to jump into the one that I think this is sort of my area of speciality right now, at least. I live in the metaverse about 50% of my day. So I wake up at like 5-6 o'clock every morning. I play for about 2 or 3 hours in the morning on Oculus. A lot of the times I'm just playing games. Like, it's just my way of like de-stressing in the morning. But we also have like fitness apps and things like that on there, so you can actually seriously break a sweat. And the ping pong game I was mentioning, that's like a legit like ping pong game. But then the other half of it is we use them for work. So everyone at Muzie we got everybody an Oculus headset. Very cool. We've met up in the metaverse multiple times for business meetings. There's some functions that still need some work, and we'll talk about what does and doesn't work, but there's tons of cool stuff in this area. And I think this is the one that is getting the most hate, pessimism on the right now, at least in the media streams, because nobody's a fan of Zuckerberg. And I do think personally, if he was to back himself away from the project, split off Meta as like the metaverse as a separate entity, and give the CEO control to somebody else, I think that company would do really, really, really well. I think it's actually just a perception issue right now. But yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I'm glad you're going to be able to talk more because I have never put on an Oculus or anything, so I just know about it. But
okay, cool. So I can fill in a lot of what is.
Yeah, because this is only like 4 or 5 slides. All right, so
okay, cool. Then
a virtual reality space in which users can interact with the computer-generated environment and others. So yeah, there's Zucks there. And one cool part, musically anyway, that got my attention was now they have AR piano lessons where you put it on and you can actually see your hands. It's like semi-transparent. You can see your hands and light up keys. They tell you what to do. Same thing for drums. It can sense where the drums heads are, light up where to hit to kind of go do that. But to you, it might look like that, you know?
Yes.
And now this is an interesting one, like guitar. I don't know how this exactly works with the guitar. I actually talked to Q Harrison Terry, who's a big author on the metaverse. He was at VCon and I had a convo with him and I was like, hey man, is it possible to teach guitar lessons in the metaverse? And he thought for a second, he's like, not really yet. He's like, because of the fingers and that kind of situation, basically where you're kind of looking down, it's at an angle. It'd be a little harder, I guess. He said, but I mean, you can with other instruments, but not yet for guitar. So maybe you can speak into some of that too, because that's
so that actually, if you go back one more. All right, so this one. So this is I've vaguely talked about this on other podcasts and appearances and things. This is something we talk about at Muzie a decent amount. Not something we're going to crack on this year. It's probably going to be the 2024 project. But this is all very much applicable. So with the headsets we have now, we've basically beta tested this in some very rudimentary ways, but it works. So you can teach guitar in VR with a huge caveat. He's not wrong. It's not great. The way it works is through the pass-through lenses. So there's cameras on the front of the headsets that film what's going on in the real world. And then you use, like you see there, you see the fake music, the VR part in sort of displayed above the real instrument. The problem right now is the cameras are all black and white. So, and they're all crap quality. Like not even like, they're like 320p. Like it's like terrible quality.
Yeah.
So that's the problem, is the hardware's not there. Now the Pro Oculus Quest Pro that just came out this week, that is, the brand new thing in the market, that's got full color pass through with high definition lenses on the other end, which is really great. It's also $1,500. So I don't know a single person who has bought it. And I know a lot of people who online have been very disappointed when they purchased it. So this is what we're talking about, where we're saying this stuff's coming down the line. Now, here's the thing about the metaverse, though. In my opinion, this is the fastest one. This one's going to hit you like a train if you're not ready for it. Because Apple is going to release a headset, and it will either be this year or next year. And the way we know this is there's been more rumors about the Apple headset than there were about the Apple smartwatch. And the smartwatch did, in fact, come out. So they're 99.9% sure the headset is real and it's coming.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing there is the second Apple does anything, it becomes consumer centric. So every other person's going to get one, and you're going to at least know someone who has one. And they're going to go heavy focusing in work and stuff like that. But they'll do a big swath of entertainment and stuff like that because it's Apple. The thing about Apple, though, is the hardware. It's going to have like 4K cameras on the outside. It's going to be light as a feather. It's going to be sleek. It's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
But it's also going to be version 1. So remember, that's what we're talking about here, is version 1 of this stuff. And like you see this screenshot on the right here, just tell me about video games in 1980 and video games today. Like quite literally Pong to playing table tennis in VR. Like that's where we're at now. So if we take the same kind of thing, these piano visuals that you've got over here are going to be a completely full HD pass-through lens of your real environment, and then a crystal clear and superimposed image of sheet music or notes falling or anything like that. And we've talked about this at Muzie, making a practice room for the students. So this is where you would start, because it's pretty logical. So you start with the practice room, and so we'd have it so like you go in, put the headset on, you can open your assignments, and your sheet music actually displays like that in free space. and you can move it around and everything, and you have the pass through for the bottom 50%. So anytime you look down, you're just seeing your real hands and your real instrument.
Right.
And then anything that you do can just be recorded like it would be normally, uploaded. You can interact with things with your hand gestures just by moving stuff in the free space. All of this is, we've not built any of it. Like I said, we'll take a crack at all this later. But the apps I've used, I've been able to mimic most of that. Not all in one app yet. I've had to like try this feature in that app and this feature in that app. And that's sort of where we're at with the technology. But the cool thing is, like, I taught a music theory lesson in VR successfully. I had all my kids join into class. We had a whiteboard. Everyone had their own little whiteboard. We had a big whiteboard in the middle. Everyone has their own markers. We did I show them how to draw a treble clef. They'd all draw the treble clef. I'd show them where the notes go on the staff. They'd put the notes on their staff. We'd all talk to each other. You can walk around the room and high five and all that jazz. So there is a level of it that already functions.
Right.
But going back to the practice stuff, once you've built out the practice function, then you just incorporate the chat. And of course, as we know, the problem there becomes latency, high fidelity, and all of that stuff, and transmitting like the imagery of your hands. The way I would do it, I would argue with the author, obviously not my expertise to do so, but my argument with him would be that you wouldn't virtualize the person. That's a stupid waste of time, honestly.
Sure.
It's going to mess up more often than not because of how nuanced the movements are in your fingers.
Right.
That even if you're using like Amazon's top level like hand tracking software, which they use for like people moving things around the factories and stuff, I don't think you would get the precision you really need, especially like low lighting, shitty camera, bad environment, like those kinds of things. I don't think you'd end up having the outcome you actually want. So the quick solution is just get rid of that function and just transmit the actual video. So like you'd have in a Muzie call, you'd have a video window there and a VR window sort of there, and there's stitched together so that you're seeing your teacher's actual hands and actual piano, but you might see like an animated version of their face.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
To be fair, those faces are getting a lot better, so it's not so creepy anymore. But I don't know. It's almost like the better they get, the creepier they get. So it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, that's true, man. Well, that's great insight, man. I'm gonna have to beef up this little part of the.
Yeah, that's my area, because like I said, we use them for work. One thing I can say about these though is that there's still a lot to be done. Like we got them so we could all do meetings, and it works pretty well. You can all go in a meeting, you can all be in the same room together. You can all talk to each other. You can put PowerPoints up on the screen and stuff like that. But if you need to I don't know, like you need to do anything like one-on-one, or like you can't like break out from the group. You can't there's tons of little things that you like try to do that you're then just end up being back on a call, like a video call and screen share. And it's just faster and it's just easier. Right. When it gets to the point where you put on a pair of sunglasses or it's built into your contact lenses, which again is not as far away as people think it is. The contact lenses stuff is already heavily in not production, but in testing. So like it's going to become the thing that you sort of interface with instead of a phone. Yep. So that's the one. That's why I take the most interest in the metaverse, because I'm not sure it's going to be Facebook that actually succeeds in that market. I think it's going to be somebody else who builds out like the metaverse, but Facebook's given a good shot at it. And honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Facebook, but at least they're putting in the effort.
Yeah, that's true, man. Well, I mean, I think you nailed it too. Like they realized that the average consumer is not crazy about these headsets, so that now they've pivoted and going toward more the business commercial corporate route. Oh man, buy these $1,500 thing because corporate will just throw money or whatever. So like, oh great, I'll spend $30,000 on the headsets for my employees if that meeting virtually or whatever.
If you think about, if you're a massive corporation and you think like, well, why don't we just get all the higher ups? Let's get everybody in all the major department heads like a headset so we can do our like big roundtable discussions in person. Right. At first, you're like, this seems like a really logical idea. And then, but then it kind of breaks down to the point where just sending a Zoom link sometimes is faster and more convenient, and just you actually want to see the people's faces. But having said all that, 5 to 10 years from now, I think it will be easier to just throw your sunglasses on, hit the button on the side, and boom, you're in the call.
Yeah.
So I think those barriers will break down.
For sure, man. Well, cool. I've only got a handful more things I wanted to touch on, like AI. Some people may be wondering what that is. So AI is the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, and translation between languages. So this is really fascinating. Here's some examples, right? Siri, when you tell, hey, Siri, blah, 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 that's AI that translates your voice to the text or code that then goes onto the internet to search whatever you asked her to search for, then brings it back. AI brings it back from text to voice to spit back out to you. Several AIs working together, right? Tesla, self-driving cars, a lot of AI, marketing chatbots, or chatbots are an example of AI. And then finally, this is interesting, the music recording. Talking about NFTs, I saw this come up on a blurb not too long ago, just a few weeks ago, right at the end of October, that a Bored Ape signs a deal with Create and manager Milo Stokes. So now, because of AI, you can basically create artificially this music and then just attach an NFT to be the main singer, basically.
Yeah, gorillas to the extreme.
Yeah, so this is crazy, man. So this Bored Ape, I just mentioned that, but he's okay. Yeah,
to explain this is it's the ape in that photograph that has signed to the record deal. There's no human. Well, I mean, there's a human involved, but it's not a person named Jimbo. It is the ape that is signed to the contract.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, I did a little surface level research, and obviously there's a big team behind it to make this kind of happen and produce it and all that kind of stuff. But he is credited with some of the writing and I suppose producing. So in other words, they used AI for this end as well, So if you actually go to YouTube and look up Jimbo Bored Ape Yacht Club 9797 Plastic, that's the video that they're talking about that recently dropped. So you can actually go see it. Plastic is the name of it, produced by Dream Addicts and written by, it's literally said written by Jimbo along with these other guys. So pros and cons, man. Some pros for AI, I think, are just easier process for artists. So you can, create a drum track. I could be like, hey, AI, go make a drum track that sounds like this song, and then it will just make that beat of the song.
Well, have you ever used the one that's in the new GarageBand program?
No, I haven't.
So this is it. As far as I'm aware, it's actually not AI, but here's a brute force way of doing something that an AI will be able to do without this much effort. So the way that GarageBand has done this, if I'm not mistaken, is they have a matrix, and it is loud, soft, simple, complex. So you just move the circle anywhere you want, and it will create. So here's the thing: it doesn't create a drum pattern. What they did is they actually went out and recorded like 1 million different drum samples of every possible thing you could think of, and just have cataloged them into millions of categories to make it work on a matrices like that.
Right.
But there is a little bit of AI in it that I can tell, because there's a button you can click that's follow the drum beat, or follow the beat. So whatever you play, you can then attach a drum to it after the fact, and it will play the drum beat that is appropriate for what you just created. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about, is that you can have a member of your band who's an AI. You could have an AI drummer who actually is coming up with completely original parts that are in response to what you are giving it.
Exactly. I actually have a screenshot of that exact example you're talking about. It wasn't through GarageBand, but it was something else. So it's kind of cool you mentioned that. Last two things I'll say about that: more creativity, less work, and protect your music. For example, if you go live on Facebook, I don't know if you've ran into this, but if it catches a copyrighted song in the background, it'll shut down the live.
Right.
That's all AI that does that kind of stuff. So Oh, this is a little thing from Performing Mag I thought was interesting. It said the user could tell the software what kind of music they want. They'd input the information about a wealth of existing music, and the computer would analyze the data, strategically randomize it to produce new pieces of music. The user could then instruct the software to change specific things, thereby teaching it more about the preferred outcome, kind of exactly what you're talking about. So I found this website called drumbot.glitch.me. Very basic looking, but it did the exact same thing you're talking about that GarageBand does. And the fact that I just clicked, I'm ready. It pulled up this thing, and I did this on my little trackpad on my laptop. So it wasn't very good, but all these little mini dots up here were just a little thing I came up with. Then I clicked like stop record, and then I saved it. And then all these other dots underneath were the drum beat that it put to it.
It generated.
It just generated automatically, right? So that's kind of an example of, kind of what you can do. So those are some of the pros, man. But here's a couple of the cons I thought of. Oh, another AI. I just added this like 20 minutes before I hopped on here.
Oh, nice.
So in my studio, I wanted to make a Thanksgiving week post today, and I've already done it in my little parent group or whatever. I said, hey, I wanted to find a picture of a turkey playing guitar, so I have this app called Pixel Cut that did that. So I typed in turkey bird playing guitar, and AI generated this picture for me. It did this goofy one over there, and then it did these other two. I was like, man, all these look kind of stupid. So I just went to Google and got one. But the idea is that the technology is out there, and yes, it's very young and early now, but eventually you'll be able it can aid you in these things, right?
100%. And this big announcement that got dropped last week is Canva has just dropped their version of this. And so now in Canva, which is also announced 100 million monthly users, active monthly users, which is wild. Such a cool product. But what they've got now is in the toolbar on the side, you can add AI images, and then you can type anything you want and it'll do the generation stuff like this. And you can pick the style and all that kind of stuff. And the thing to sort of explain AI in a more general sense too, is that like the whole learning thing is that like the more you tell it, the better it gets at understanding what it is you're looking for. So if you were to ask it for a turkey with a guitar 20 times, by the 20th time, you'll get a better and better rendition, assuming you're giving it valuable input each time. So you'd be like large bird, brown feathers, red meat, like you describe a turkey. And you tell it this is what a turkey is, and you give it images of turkeys. And so it's learning off of it's the way humans learn. Like you give a kid 1,000 books that have the word cat, eventually they know how cat works, as in language, without someone explicitly telling them that this is how it works. So it's very interesting technology. But and I'm sure we'll get into some of the negatives too, but I've been having a lot of fun with these photo generation things recently. I've just been going wild. And I've been doing the same thing. I think.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. Sorry, it cut out there for a second, but I got you back now. I even made like Elon Musk playing the guitar just for fun, Oh, did I lose you? Shoot. Man, I think I might have lost you, bro. Sorry.
She joined. Oh, there we go. Oops. Josh Gillis joined. All right, here we go. All right, there we go. We're back.
Back in.
We're back.
Sorry, man. I must have got disconnected. So,
no worries.
Let me get back to there. Okay, sweet, man. So yeah, I'll just keep rolling, man, and almost to the end here. So thoughts on cons of it. I thought this was interesting. Rolling Stone said, "Let's not panic. This is not the dystopian nightmare about real musicians being replaced by computers that some might fear, but an opportunity for artists and content creators to explore paths they wouldn't otherwise discover. So some of the cons I've thought of was, hey man, yeah, that's true. Like, we don't need to think this is some huge bad thing, like you mentioned earlier, but some of the cons are that, yeah, it may remove the artist's touch. It may be a little less authentic because you're borrowing from other things rather than creating it yourself. You run into legalities, some copyright issues. If you grab a drum track that sounds like that, well, are you really just taking someone else's drum track? How do you work that out in copyright land? And this quote I thought was great by Melissa Slocum, who, by the way, says hello. She's making sure.
Oh, yeah, she could say it.
She said, the tech is way ahead of the law right now when it comes to this stuff. And I thought that was so true, because like even in crypto land, like they're really pushing legislation to figure out how we're going to regulate all this stuff.
Right.
Even with copyright issues, it's just, we don't know yet. And so thankfully I don't have to personally solve that problem yet, but it's something to think about. So an early technology, just like the AI turkey you saw, it's just poor quality right now, but it will improve,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree with those cons, is that that you will, although the first con is funny, I agree with it, but it's the same con that I'm sure was said when the synthesizer was invented. Like I'm sure it's exactly the same thing I was saying when I was like practicing my guitar 6 hours a day, and then my like buddy would come into class in high school with his like iPad and have like written something on
right.
Yeah.
Josh Gillis joined.
All right, we're back.
Sorry, buddy.
No worries, no worries. And this is the kind of funny. This is a real life example of technology. Is that like I'm running a tech company that facilitates a lot of.
Oh man, I lost it again. I'm gonna try to connect to my phone, man. Maybe that'll help.
This is an example of what it's like to run a tech company that revolves around technologies. A lot of times people will come to me and say, and I know Josh can't hear me, this is just for the audience, is that I know people come to me and be like, oh, I'm having this issue, and a lot of the time, hey, there we go. I think there's not two of you, but that works. I was just sort of talking to the camera, saying that it's funny having these tech issues because people come to me being like, how do I fix it? And a lot of the times it's like, it's not a tech issue more than it's just like a glitch in the matrix. Like those things just happen. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like your computer isn't fun. Like nothing changed while we were talking. Like it's not like that. We can't call up the Melon app people and be like, hey guys, while we were talking, someone disconnected for a second. Like what's going on? Yeah. You'd be like, well, it's just a bad Wi-Fi connection, or it's a bad, so it is interesting that, kind of coming from both sides of it. Cause I totally understand why people can get super frustrated about things. But on the other side, sometimes you're like, well, it's just is what it is. Sometimes tech is a mysterious little beast. And at the end of the day, it's all kind of new technology. Like you sort of said there, that new technology equals poor. And that's usually true, is that newer things need time to be refined out. Like Muzie's no exception to that rule. Is like, the whole thing we're doing right now is redesigning the entire product. So in January, everybody's going to get Muzie 2.0. It's a completely new product from the ground up, but everything's the same, all the same functions, just redesigned, easier to use. And that's because in the first version and iteration, we got things wrong and that we needed to fix them and keep going. And that iteration in software development is what makes this so cool, is that I get to experience it from the back end sort of in real time. So I can see like how long these timelines are. Any timeline a pundit ever tells you, triple it, and then you're probably more likely to get the right answer. If they say it's 5 years, it's 15 years. If they say 15 years, it's not going to happen in your lifetime.
Yeah.
So, that's sort of how I view it. But it is really cool being able to see both sides of it and sort of watch the technology emerge and grow. And there's just so many different ways that we're going to be able to apply this. I mean, I'm like, there's so many other things we didn't even scratch into, but like just with AI alone, like never mind writing music, because it could help you compose it. But you could have AI doing so many things like creating assignment. Like we could implement AI into Muzie. And it's actually something that I've thought about before. This is not something we do anytime soon, but it'd be really cool that whenever so you host a lesson, anything you're sharing during the lesson would be sort of generated into an automatic assignment. So you don't actually have to create the assignments. The assignments are generated by what actually occurred in class. So like if you say the words, hey, I want you to practice this next week. Well, then it just texts to speech and throws that in the assignment notes. You know what I mean? So like things like that are technologies that you could apply directly that would give you huge benefits that would be really cool. Like, or even practicing. The one, I know teachers are going to hate me for this one, so sorry, but don't worry, this one's decades and decades away, is that eventually you could theoretically record millions of lessons and have the data of all of those lessons transmitted into an AI, and the AI could probably learn how to teach. And so, I mean, I'm thinking more, I think instruments would actually be the very, very, very last thing on the list that would be successful at that because it's so nuanced. But I'm thinking more like math, something that's very, very generic, something very factual, very, cut and dry. There's no reason you couldn't have 1,000 or 10 million math classes recorded by actual math teachers, feed that data into an AI and spit out a pretty decent math teacher. Obviously I'm super simplifying what goes on, but that's the theoretical implications of what could go on down the line. And I think that's kind of fantastic. Or as a business, wouldn't it be awesome if I had a salesman who was a robot, who was actually a good salesman, who could make phone calls and could be like, hey, this is Bob from Muzie, and we want to know how you're doing with this, this, and this. He could answer your questions and just takes notes. And then when I come into the office, I've just got a spreadsheet full of demos that have been booked by Bob the robot. It's like, or for you want to get new students and you want to create the greatest advertisement that's possible. Well, a little bit of AI could give you better wording choice, could give you a better image choice, it could give you better location set. It could give you those little things that make and as you know, so having a successful ad can make a big difference. And we could talk about that real quick if you wanted, but that ad of yours seems to have kind of gone around the world real quick. But I think it's the kind of thing where if you had AI enhancement on something like that, it would probably hit even harder, 100%. So I think that stuff is really cool.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've heard a lot of copywriters talk about Jasper.io or whatever it is, but it's for bloggers, copywriters, or whatever to just do a lot of the grunt work for you, man. All you got to do is just reread it and tweak a few things, but the bulk of it's done, so.
Yeah. And I think that's a fantastic thing. And those are the kinds of things where people are like, to address the whole, like, oh, well, we'll take jobs away. No, it will change what jobs are. And that's how the world works. Jobs never get taken away. They only change. Mm-hmm. It's like matter. You can't destroy it. Like it's just, so it just changes state. And the way I know, like the best example is like steam engine operators. It's like they had to become gas engine operators who will become electric engine operators who will eventually become like plasma engine operators who will become like ion. Like it just keeps evolving. It's not like we're going to fire all the people who need technical skills or something. Like
that's it.
There's a lot more to this than I always think of all of this stuff as an aid to what you do. A good example is like, here, I'll put this back, is what you're saying is like I think back a few slides, you said something about like just having the AI to help you write. It might lack some creativity, but it also might be the thing you need to get your song done because you don't have that skill set. So I'm not thinking about writing the next top 100 song because in all honesty, I do not care about that. I could not care less if I found out tomorrow that Justin Bieber, Kesha, and Katy Perry were all robots. Like if you told me that was all AI generated music and those were just actors, I would not care at all. I'd be impressed, but I wouldn't care. Like, you know, but what I would love is that when my student says to me, "Hey, I'm working on this song," and he comes to me and plays this cool like riff that he's working on, and then he's like, "But I don't have a bass or drums or keyboards, and I don't know how to like do the and like obviously I part of what we teach and help, but it would be so cool if there was a way of him being able to put in an AI drum track that actually fit the music that he's working on, or a bass line that actually could listen to the music and spit back." Because it's not about writing a hit. It's about allowing that student to fulfill a creative endeavor. And that's where I think people need to, if you're worried about this stuff, bring it back to the humanity realism side of things. That big industries will change, but we're talking about how will this impact you and your students in your day-to-day life? Because music's not going anywhere. People are going to be learning and playing music till the end of time. That's just how humans are. It's the longest thing we've got. I'd argue it's older than language. So, you know what I mean? Like I think that it's going to be around until we speak in, or just like telecommunicate through telepathy and robots or something. You know? Like, I think
that last
when we're all robots.
Yeah, dude, this last little bit you've been talking about is a great way to kind of wrap it up and put a bow on it. Because when I go back to think about, okay, what will our studios look like? The same.
Yeah, there you go.
Different. So guitar, if you think about it, that guitar lessons haven't changed a whole lot, even when we have all this technology, even we have internet. Yes, we have Zoom and things like that, but at the core, it hasn't changed a ton, right? But a lot of these things function as aids, right?
Yeah. Well, and like with online lessons, obviously that's my specialty. And people are always like, "Oh, well, like, what do I do? You know, I can't figure it out." Or teach basically the same. Like, do your job basically the same way. Like, it's slightly different. You got to adapt. That's why, we build tools to make that adapting easier. But at the end of the day, I still teach the same way. I still say basically the same exact things. I expect my students to do a little bit more because we're online now, but I don't see any negative impact there. I see an access to education benefit that we never had before. And then I see that with Web3 and VR that you could be teaching group classes with kids all over the world who could actually be hanging out with each other.
Right.
And like actually like standing next to each other in a virtual environment, seeing how tall their kid friends are, and stuff like that makes it feel more real. Like those are the things that I think are currently missing from the digital space. But NFTs, Web3, all of this is going to bring it to a reality. And I think that I love the way you summed it up in the beginning. Is the Web3 is the you create and you own.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great message sort of for teachers and people to understand that this is like, you're going to get more out of this future tech than it's not going to be the dystopia where one government entity owns everything. It's actually probably going to be the opposite.
Right. More decentralized for sure, man.
Yeah.
And so now like this is the opportunity to like be thinking about it, and nothing in these slides or us talking like means you should go out and do any of this.
Oh, totally. All. Don't get a wallet. Don't go and get a crypto wallet. Don't buy Ethereum. Don't NFTs. Like, please don't do any of those things. That's not what we're asking. We are simply saying to acknowledge that it exists. Keep an eye out for it. If it is something you're interested in, start doing your research and then decide how you want to approach getting your feet wet. And on that note, though, I'm more than happy if anyone has questions, they can obviously come to us. They know where I am. And I'm sure, Josh, you're probably fine with it. Anyone wants to come and chat with you about this stuff.
Yeah, man. So, we'll kind of end it there, man. Like next steps, start having these combos now. Like number 2, do your 50 hours of research. Read books, podcasts, webinars, like listen to podcasts like this. Just get your feet wet with it. You just don't know what you don't know at this point. It's still the wild, wild west out there in crypto land and blockchain land and all that. So we're learning this together. That's what prompted us to have this conversation to kind of like get convo going. And lastly, join communities like the Muzie community and contribute. Like when you learn something, talk about it, you know? So bro,
absolutely.
That's all I got with that, man.
Cool. Thank you so much for I love the slides. That was very helpful. A great way of being able to sort of break down what are very complicated topics. And the one thing with crypto, the joke that I see everywhere is like, if someone pretends they know what it is, then they don't know what it is. Like, and that's kind of true in the sense that, like, we're not saying that we're experts in this. That we're saying that this is the emerging technologies of the next 10 to 20 years. There'll be others, there's drones and actual robots and self-driving cars and all this medicine and biochemical and all that other stuff. And, that's all going to happen as well. But these are the big digital trends. And as our lives move more and more digital, and as the kids that grow up in the next generations just grow up with blockchain and crypto as part of their world, it's not weird for them to have a wallet to log into things. It's not weird for them for their passport to be on their phone. It's not, that's normal life to those kids. And as educators, it's our responsibility, I believe, to stay on top of trends so that you can stay a relevant educator. You might be teaching music, but if you're using a 1980s Windows computer in 2022, you're not going to get very far, So those are the kinds of things, like, you got to stay abreast of what's happening. And this is a fun way to do it. So,
yeah, 100%, dude. Well, man, I really enjoyed the convo, and I really appreciate the opportunities to chit chat. I've certainly learned a lot from you, especially in the metaverse thing. So, man, appreciate you contributing.
Yeah, you got to get yourself one of the cheap, get the Oculus Quest 2, the cheaper, the $200 ones, not the $1,500 ones. But they're a lot of fun. I throw that thing on and play games and hang out with people and watch movie. I actually watch a lot of movies in there. That's one thing I actually think is very good for having like a massive movie theater screen. Or like for my desk, I have 3 monitors that are all virtual. So my laptop is virtual, but it's my actual laptop I'm seeing. So I can type on my real keyboard and it shows up all virtual. It's very clever. And we're just scratching the surface. It's going to be a really fun ride. So anyone that's interested in it, please reach out to us about it. And hopefully in the future, you'll see like actual Muzie stuff. Oh, I think my camera just crashed. Perfect timing. Well, there we go. So on that camera dead note, I can come back from here, I think. There we go. See, so other one's much better quality. But on that note, I think we can wrap it up here. And I thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. And just real quick, promised I wouldn't do it, but for anyone that is interested, we are doing a 20% discount for the next week. This is the first time we've ever run a sale, like a proper sale like this. So if anyone is actually interested, it's like annual accounts are 192 instead of 240. So it's actually like pretty good savings, which is already $40 cheaper than if you pay monthly. So if you're currently paying monthly for our pro account, you're paying like $288 a year. We're offering you basically $90 off. So if you want to take a shot,
I'm probably going to do that because I'm a
not you did, but you are one of the users, I guess. So I guess it does apply. But yes, just for people in general, we'll run that for the whole week. If anyone's interested, go for it.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I mean, he's not paying me to even say this, but I've known Sam, really just this year. And because I heard about you through Riley Anderson and he used you guys. And I was like, man, I'm looking to do this. I just started teaching full time this year and I needed a platform that was a little bit better than Zoom, and then found you guys. And so, yeah, man, it's all kind of cool how it all, connects.
It all comes together. It works. But again, thank you so much for coming by and the info and presenting and everything. It's been fantastic. And I'll see you around in the group and everything. And hopefully one day we'll get to actually meet everybody in person. There's some talk of conferences next year actually happening in person. Yeah. So we'll see if we can make that actually work. And
sounds like a meet up
for real.
For sure, dude. Awesome. Well, thanks again, brother. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. See ya.